As the dust settles on a catastrophic news day for the Minnesota Vikings, one thing is clear. Sam Darnold has an opportunity. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day, maybe even especially when things go pretty bad in Viking land. So thank you all so much for coming and hanging out. If you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Luke. You can find Locked On Vikings Monday through Friday, wherever you find your favorite shows. The Vikings, of course, play the Cleveland Browns on Saturday. You can find live broadcasts of that and every other Minnesota Vikings game on the SiriusXM app, as well as Locked On Vikings episodes. You just download the app there. You can also get Locked On Vikings on YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku if you download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today on the show, we reached the horrifying conclusion of the J.J. McCarthy knee saga, and then more bad news comes flooding out of their joint practice with Cincinnati. So we've got a lot of pieces to pick up today. But really what this turns into is a different expectation, of course, but also just a different character to the 2024 season than what we had before. But first, the bare facts. J.J. McCarthy had his knee surgery on Wednesday. It was successful. They had the repair. Kind of thought that it would be pretty unlikely to do the trim, knowing the way that they just the situation. He's a young guy. He wasn't really slated to start anyways. They have Sam Darnold in the building and they like him. So something super aggressive at the cost of long-term health just didn't seem like a very likely option, and that turned out to be the case. So they went for the repair. Kevin O'Connell confirmed that it is a season-ending injury. Albert Breer reported on this for SI, and he sort of posited that maybe he could make a late season return. Like that could be possible, but that the Vikings have no intention to do that and no real reason to think that they'll change their minds down the road. Because if you are playing well enough where this Vikings team is like in playoff contention and it even matters down the road, you're probably pretty happy with Sam Darnold. So I don't really see a world where they rush that, even though if you just look at like these procedures and their typical timelines, like by December, by even, early January when you're in like week 17, 18, you're kind of reaching the end of what that normal rehab process would look like. It just kind of doesn't make sense to rush him back for like one game or whatever. And then you can, possibly risk setbacks and all this really bad stuff. Like just let him be healthy the way I've been thinking about it is by the Super Bowl. By the time they play the Super Bowl, he should be healthy. And that gives him most, if not all, of the offseason to continue working mechanics, to get four months of work in on the field with experts, with trainers, with the people that he's been working with his whole career, as well as anybody else the Vikings decide they want to set him up with, whatever phone numbers they give him, right? And a year kind of in the meeting room and around the building. As I think it was Garrett Bradbury that put it when he was asked about this. He's like, he's a young kid, and now he kind of can, like, he's still going to be around, and he's still going to be able to soak things up and learn the whole time isn't a loss. So that's kind of the shape of this now, that J.J. McCarthy will sort of learn the mental side all year and be involved in the mental side all year, while the physical workload is more about rehabbing the injury than it is about, like, working on quarterback mechanics, and it has to be. Injury rehab is this very frustratingly gradual thing where you can do like an hour of physical work a day and then you can't do anything else, which is like mentally becomes really tough because you don't feel like you're doing a lot of, if you listen to the Everman series all summer, we went through a lot of people that testified that are on the Vikings that went through some injury at some point in college or even after, or even in high school, that like testified to that. And if you watch the Netflix show with Justin Jefferson, he talks about that same idea. It's a very common thing with injured players. That's the mental challenge now that J.J. McCarthy has to go through. But hopefully, as that rehab process goes on, he's still doing game plans. He's still kind of soaking up some of that information and improving his comfortability with the offense and with the concepts of quarterbacking, with Kevin O'Connell. And then you work on the physical stuff all off season. Ideally, that would have been happening simultaneously, but now it'll be a little bit slower. I don't think it's going to be a whole year slower, though. And here's the thing. Week 1, 2025 is the goal. And I think if we find out that week 1, 2025 is not the goal and that J.J. McCarthy isn't ready to start by week 1, 2025, and like we have to bring back Sam Darnold or whatever, then I think that is a concern that isn't excused by the injury. That's just like, oh no, like maybe we got a bigger problem here that isn't quite the injury. They might use that as an excuse, but I don't know if I'm going to be willing to accept it. Maybe that's a way to put it. So there's that. And as we are processing and dealing with the sort of readjustment of our expectations, Jordan Addison rolls his ankle and gets rolled off and gets carted off the field at Cleveland Browns joint practices. By the way, Cleveland Browns joint practices sounded like they were super bad for the Vikings. It sounded like they just got absolutely mogged, which I'm like pretty happy to give them a pass on this one. It's a weird day, right? You got this J.J. McCarthy news. Addison gets hurt in the middle of practice. And plus the Browns are just a better team than them, which is, hey, go line up against a better team and get smoked. That's fine, I guess. But like that's good for you, right? Iron sharpening iron and stuff, difficult competition and stuff like that. But like, make no mistake, the Browns they've got Super Bowl aspirations this year over there. Like they're talking about Super Bowl or people start getting fired. We're in what kind of already was a rebuilding year and now is just a super like down year. And I would imagine that the vibes are a little, I'm good to give them, I would love to see them come back for the next joint practice and come back with a little bit more fire. But like, look, today is weird. Okay. We can just let this one go. It's fine. But of course with Jordan Addison going down. So here's the deal. We're getting mixed messages again. And again, Kevin O'Connell may be underplaying things. He says, that the injury isn't serious, and that they like got positive news. That this was also confirmed by like Ian Rappaport and stuff, which is basically the team told reporters, but just said, hey, please report this. That's the Ian Rappaport role, by the way. Whenever he reports things, especially injury news, it's usually coming directly from the team itself. So, and like through the like PR staff of the team. So that's the optimistic part is the team itself and their messaging is saying, yeah, no, it's not a big deal. We're going to be cautious and stuff. But he's on crutches and in a walking boot, walking away from practice. Ben Gessling saw it. So I don't know what you want to make of that. But if you want to call it like an ankle sprain or something, and maybe you miss a couple weeks, probably not a lot of reason for him to play in the rest of preseason anyways. It just kind of came down on his ankle weird. Like it's one of those things you can't really do anything about or do anything to prevent. It happens. But now, if he does miss the start of the regular season, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a lot, but yeah, you might like miss the Giants game and San Francisco game. That was kind of weeks 1 or 2. So now we got that to deal with. And it's just like this deluge. It's just so much stuff that comes in that like needs to be processed. So where I guess this brings us now is we all kind of knew, if you followed the Vikings, especially if you're locked on Vikings every day, you knew that Sam Darnold would start the season. And the idea was maybe J.J. McCarthy comes in at some point, takes over when he's ready, when he's done working on this and this and that, and these mechanical things. And we had a lot of fun, covering that mechanical journey as far as it went, kind of the minutia of it, of the day-to-day of it. But now we have to sort of shift our perspective. That this is now a true blue Sam Darnold year. A lot of national people that just don't pay enough attention to the Vikings were like, whoa, now this is Sam Darnold's opportunity, as if it wasn't already. And I think those people just didn't really understand that Sam Darnold was going to be the week 1 starter and that was like pretty much decided like very fast. But whatever, they don't really pay attention to the Vikings and we don't need to listen to them. That is now, though, it's like a different, because now it's guaranteed that Sam Darnold's going to have the whole year. And this creates a very big opportunity for him and where he is at in his career This is everything to him. This is a chance to leave that Jets legacy behind and, in a very Geno Smith-ish way, forget the bad Jets years and move onward with an NFC team, right? This is his chance to do that. And whether the next few years are here or not, that's a separate question. But if he has the chance to play well enough to force that question to be asked, that is a better opportunity than it was before for him. And isn't that the zero-sum nature of camp and stuff? So let's talk a little bit about where Sam Darnold has been. We already did his Everyman series. We'll recap that a little bit and what this opportunity means to him, as well as what this season is becoming now and how we feel about that as fans. That'll all be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Believe it or not, in spite of all of this news, FanDuel still has the Vikings over-under win total at 7.5. Now, if you take the under, you're getting it at -168, so it is a very expensive line. People are very much hammering it, but as I'm looking at it right now, it is still at 7.5. So if you think this is going to be a 3-win disaster season and you're looking at draft boards and saying, oh my God, we're going to get Travis Hunter, hey, yeah, maybe you lay a buck on that or whatever it is. If you want to go to FanDuel.com, you can find a boost or bonus, a new one every single day. Every single day there is something new. So go check back often and see if there's anything you like there. Once again, that is at FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. If fantasy football is now the only thing keeping you getting out of bed in the morning, why don't you check out Locked On Fantasy Football with Vinny Iyer. Get that edge for your probable upcoming draft. That is, of course, every Monday through Friday on the Locked On Network. Let's move a little bit big picture, right? Because the season has changed now. And we've gone from this being a year of, like, for me, with rookie quarterbacks, and you'll hear me on Locked On NFL. I'm on Locked On NFL on Tuesdays, by the way. Go check me out if you want to hear me and Ross talk about it. Whenever we talk about rookie quarterbacks, especially on teams like the Patriots right now, or very clearly in rebuilds, or the Panthers or whatever last year, you just say, if the quarterback is good, I don't care, right? If the Texans, for example, happened to not make the playoffs, let's say the Jaguars don't fall apart at the end the way they do, and they make the playoffs, and Texans don't make the playoffs. Most Texans fans are probably chilling because CJ Stroud looked good, and they can feel good about the next year, and they didn't really have any expectations for last year anyways. So that's kind of where I'm at a lot of the time. When you got a team with a rookie quarterback and a roster in flux, there's a lot of star power on this roster. Now a bunch of it's hurt at this particular moment, but you still have a lot of star power on the roster, but it's very much in flux. You got a cornerback room that's very incomplete. You have a very patchwork defensive line. You've got, receiver depth is very much in question. You got questions on the O-line. You got a lot of questions around. This is not a completed team by any stretch of the imagination. It's a rebuild year, and we knew it would be a rebuild year, but just to kind of zoom way, way, way out, when Kwesi got here in 2022, the plan was very clear because the first transaction he made, or the first major transaction he made, I think the first transaction he made might have been signing Johnny Munt, if I recall. But the first major transaction he made was extending Kirk Cousins and essentially turning the last year of his deal, which was $45 million, which was a lot, was felt unfathomable in that cap environment. It doesn't anymore, but this major cap hit and essentially spreading it out into 2 more manageable cap hits and saying we got 2 more years of Kirk Cousins. And when I saw that, people didn't believe me, by the way, because they wanted to think that that they were more committed to Kirk than they actually were. But when I saw that, it was very clear to me. Okay, we got 2 years of Kirk, and then we're going to let him walk. And that's going to let Kwesi kind of mold this team into his vision of it instead of what he inherited. And then you throw a rookie into the mix in 2024. That was very clearly the plan. They called that competitive rebuild, right? Hey, Kirk Cousins is in the building. We're going to try to be good here for these couple years while Cousins is here. But that doesn't mean we're just going to re-up a bunch of old guys. We're still going to try to get younger. We're still going to replace it with our own people, right? So that's where that's at. The rebuild is not complete. And I think we've reached the end of the part where you can really, with a straight face, call it competitive. I hate to be the negative Nancy about that. But this ain't going to be the year, folks. I'm sorry. All right. I don't like being a bummer, but I like lying less. This ain't going to be the year, folks. And it wasn't meant to be the year. This is meant to be a year where the rookie quarterback comes in and develops, and we're patient with it, right? And with him hurt, I think the plan, the long-term view of the plan doesn't really change. Where 2025, you come in, the rebuild should be done. QB's entering his second year. We hit the ground running, right? And while he's missing his rookie year, I still think that there's enough time for him to hit the ground running week 1, 2025 and kind of be on that same track more or less. So I'm good with that. So what has this year become now? And to be honest, they're going to lose a lot of football games this year. Teams in the NFC are better than them, more complete than them, more stable quarterback situations than them. You're going to have to deal with that. And to be frank, I think there are some people who have not seen a bad Vikings team in a while, who forgot what a really bad one is like, who've been tearing their hair out and losing their marbles at 8 and 9 seasons, forgetting what's going to happen when we go 5 and 12 and how much harder that is to watch and root for and enjoy. I'll be here with you every single day, every single game, rain or shine, no matter what. If you don't have that in you and you would rather take up woodworking on Sundays or whatever, join an adventuring league, I don't begrudge you that. But for everybody else who actually wants to enjoy football, we've still got a lot of stuff that's really fun and interesting to enjoy. From this moment that Sam Darnold is in, this career-defining spot, to Dallas Turner, who, by the way, returned to practice in the joint practices, so whatever he missed the Monday practice for was a short-term deal. He's back. Of course, watching Justin Jefferson light people up is just good TV, right? And I think the Vikings will be interesting. I think they've got enough star power on that team, especially once you get Addison back, once you get Hawkinson back and all that, to be interesting, right? You're not going to get blown out by 30 every single game. That happened a couple times, but not every single game, right? It'll still be interesting to put on TV. But if you're one of those people that thinks that watching football is a waste of time if your favorite team isn't going to win the Super Bowl, I'm not going to lie to you. Then you probably shouldn't watch this season. I'll give you the recaps. Come to Locked On Vikings. I'll recap all the games for you, and you can waste way less of your time. You can do something else with your Sundays. Come hang out for the postcasts. We'll tell you everything that happened. That might be what's best for you. You got to do what's best for you. And honestly, I think if you're one of those people, you probably can only really, by that logic, you can only really justify watching football one day a year. Why watch the regular season ever, right? Why watch any of the divisional rounds? They're not the Super Bowl. I digress. But the Sam Darnold moment is so cool to me because of how things went in New York and how much of a laughing stock he was in New York with the seeing ghosts and the mononucleosis and all these stupid little narratives that made him such a meme of a guy. And he kind of did his little, state-issued sabbatical after that's the thing a busted quarterback has to do is, go be a backup at two teams somewhere and, do the Geno Smith thing where you're a backup in New York and then you're a backup in Seattle for a little while. And, you'll see now, like all the 2021 quarterbacks are in that part now where you're Mac Jones in Jacksonville and Justin Fields in Pittsburgh being backups, kind of going and doing their hard time on the bench to pay for their sins. And I'll tell you, somebody in that group might come out and actually be a quarterback. Having learned a little bit and grown up a little bit, matured a little bit and gotten, just like a little bit of a low pressure year or two to decompress and process everything that you've learned from your time. And then when you're ready to go back and attack it, you might be better. Not everybody will be, but Sam Darnold now, the spotlight is on him, and we find out just how he responded to that. How much of what went wrong in New York has melted away with maturity, with distance from the situation. And I don't think that him returning to Minnesota in 2025 is that likely of an option. unless he plays like exactly well enough where you want him back as a backup but not a starter and nobody else wants him as a starter. But if he plays well enough to earn starting money somewhere, like there's millions of dollars on the line here for Sam Darnold. Tens of millions of dollars, maybe even $100 million if he really plays well, which isn't even that crazy on the cap. It's a 2-year deal nowadays. So there is a lot on the line for Sam Darnold. There's a lot to gain and not much to lose because he's already got a career on the outs. If he doesn't do well this year, he'll just go back to being a guy with the career on the outs that probably should just be a backup, and you can just go be a backup quarterback for a long time. The world is in front of him. And considering the narratives and all the stuff that has gone wrong for him from being the California golden boy that he was coming out and this highly touted, this like bastion of potential, this monument to potential that didn't realize it. That's his narrative right now. And this may be his last chance to change that. That is as compelling a story as any, and I look forward to watching it. I hope you join me. But I get it. It might feel a little bit right now like your favorite football team is cursed, that God has forsaken you. Let's talk it out, okay? Let's try to find a footing here and stop the spiral so we can get back to talking ball afterwards. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is online therapy made easy. If you have been thinking about getting into therapy, but you just can't make it work with your schedule, give BetterHelp a try. It's designed to be flexible. It's designed to be entirely online and suited to your schedule. So whether it's a phone call or a video chat, whether you're doing it after work or you need weird hours, they can facilitate all of that. And if you don't like the therapist that they hook you up with, you can change to another one at no additional cost. And I highly recommend that you consider that idea. Therapists are very different from each other. They are absolutely, no two the same. So if you don't like somebody, if it doesn't vibe with you, or if you just don't think that this is going to be good for you, that's not that abnormal of an experience when getting into therapy. When I got into therapy, I had to try a few out before I found one that I really vibed with and that I've been seeing now for years. And it's helped me tremendously, but let BetterHelp try a couple on for size for you and see if that helps you maintain your mental health. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. National media. Okay, I'm talking to you. All right, here's the thing. Beginning of the season, as somebody who's had a Vikings podcast for some time, I have become the Vikings guy for a lot of non-Vikings areas. And so if you are a local radio listener in like Lafayette, Louisiana, or there's one in Tennessee, there's one in Idaho, a couple around Vikings areas, a couple in like Wisconsin or like the Dakotas or whatever. If you are a local radio listener in those places, they'll do like season preview series. And they'll be like, hey, we're doing the Vikings segment. Do you want to come on, do a couple minutes with us, blah, blah, blah. So I've been doing a lot of that lately. And this pattern has arisen that, for one, the first question they all ask is they were like, so was Sam Darnold really going to be the week 1 starter? And it's like, yes, he was. They've been telling us that forever. You just clearly haven't been paying attention. I'm nicer than that on the shows, but it's like, come on. If you were awake, you would know. But it also... Now I'm starting to get this sense from those people that they just are like, oh, poor you. Oh, poor Vikings fans. I'm hearing it so much. And I'm not going to lie. I hate it. Don't feel sorry for us. And it's not because sympathy is bad or I'm like a Grinch about that. It's because I don't find it sincere. I see so many people that either just cover the NFL, the league nationally, or cover a different team that are like reaching out to the Vikings fans in their lives and being like, oh, how are you feeling? That's the last thing any of us wants to hear. Especially if you cover a team that's been like perennial, if you cover like the Patriots, right? Or if you're like especially if you're in the division, right? Just shut up. We don't want to hear from you right now. All right. I get annoyed enough at Vikings fans who take the misfortune of players, people who have sustained painful injuries and are now going to go through really difficult mental times, and then like make it about them and be like, oh, I'm suffering so much. It's like, get some perspective. I'm annoyed enough at that. But when it comes to somebody else that this affects none, that you don't care at all, it's just going to like change your fantasy ADP, get out of here. I do not need to hear fake sympathy from national people who don't really mean it and just want to look like they really care about other fan bases and they hate injuries. Look how grown up and mature I am. You don't care. You've never cared. It's patronizing. Leave us alone. So all the non-Vikings fans have left. Okay, it's just us together, you and me, Vikings fans. We're back. This season is different. This has gone from a kind of rebuilding year where you hope the quarterback shows out to a full-on rebuilding year where we're really just this is going to be forgettable. We're going to think about this year the same way we think about like the 2014 season. Oh yeah, there were some scandals that year. I think they won 7 games. It was like nothing, right? That was the year Adrian Peterson had his child abuse thing. The whole case, the whole story broke. He missed most of the year on the exempt list. Or you think about it like what do you think about the 2006 Vikings? You probably don't think about the 2006 Vikings, right? That was a year where I think that was the Brooks Bollinger year, and Kyle Bowler I think was in the mix that year, if I recall, or was it Kelly Holcomb? One of those two. What are the K names? With Brad Johnson in the mix, Tavares Jackson, everybody clamoring for Tavares Jackson. It was Brad Childress' first year. These rebuilding years where you don't really have a lot of reason to be there. And that's what this year is going to go down as. It really is. It's unless Sam Darnold comes out and has like a Case Keenum style, oh my God, this guy's actually like balling out kind of hooper year, which I'm not ruling out at all, by the way. If that happens, like, look, if he shows out really well for the first couple games, I'll change my tune real quick and be like, hey, everybody, come here. Everybody come back. Something good's on TV. But in all likelihood, this will be a forgettable season. And so what we're hoping for is different. For me, I like to focus on the individuals. So I am hoping for Sam Darnold to play well enough to earn himself some money. I think that'd be a really cool chapter to his story, and I would be really rooting for it. I really like the guy. I think that would be really cool. We're rooting for Justin Jefferson to get some other crazy milestone or something we can all brag about, right? You're rooting for Dallas Turner to come along. You're rooting for younger guys to take steps forward, like Addison, like Blake Brandel. What if he's just a really good guard and they just have him under contract for cheap? You're rooting for stuff like that. I will not be rooting for them to lose for draft position. That is a quitter's mentality. I'm sorry. I don't care if it's slightly better value to go like 6-11 versus 7-10. I don't care. You show up to compete. That's why you get into the business of sports. You engage with sports because of the spirit of competition, and I have much more respect for that than I do for draft position, which, by the way, is way overrated. You get better players at pick 10 than you do at pick 7 all the time. It's a dice roll. It's a slightly increased dice roll, but the effects are a lot more marginal than we're willing to admit at draft season. That's where I've always stood on that. I got into a pretty big fight with a lot of people about that last year around the end of the season. But you're not going to find that from me. If you want somebody to root for them for tanking for draft season, guess what? There's about 600 other Vikings podcasts that'll give you the slop you're looking for, all right? I'm here for competition. So as our expectations change, as the goals for the season change, we have to engage with it differently. And that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to, find what's interesting about the year. And look, if you go into say beat the Giants, which they might even still be favored to do, because the Giants are in their own kind of catastrophic hell. That's a weird week 1 matchup. But let's say they beat the Giants, and then you go into that home opener against San Francisco and you stun the Niners and you open up 2-0. Everything about this is changing. I am very open to that possibility, and that is my favorite possibility. I would like that, yes, but I'm going to be a little more realistic than that. This is now a Sam Darnold year. It's probably going to be the only Sam Darnold year. We will refer to this as the Sam Darnold year, when maybe we could have referred to this as J.J. McCarthy's rookie season before. We're not really. This is now, hey, remember the Sam Darnold year. For better or worse, what he has become a more disciplined quarterback, it looks like, a more mechanically sound quarterback than he ever was in New York, night and day. Even just in the one drive we saw, we could see mechanically that a lot of that over-rotation, a lot of that stuff we've been talking about with McCarthy, totally not an issue, absolutely picture perfect, exactly what you need. And it's just a matter of taking care of the football. If Sam Darnold can take care of the football and play responsible quarterback, picking his spots when he's going to be aggressive instead of being aggressive all the time. If you can, get away with the throws that he is trying to get away with, if he doesn't lose sight of safeties and linebackers over the middle and throw bad interceptions to them, if we can get a Sam Darnold that has kicked those habits, we could get to something very weird here, and that could be very fun, and I am rooting for that. But without it, this will just be the Sam Darnold year. And you have to understand that the moment in time that you're in is one that as soon as it's over, we're going to want to stop thinking about. Do with that what you will. Maybe we'll get back to the Everyman series tomorrow. We'll talk more about joint practices and stuff. I will see you all for that. And as always, Skol.